Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to go back to our friends at Forgate, Dustin.
The bad boys of blending.
Some of my favorite guys in the industry. Yes. This time, the Kelvin Cooperage number 6, 57.8% ABV. Bottle number 1374. It's Dustin sounds it out for me because we had a couple today. Dustin. Forgate, some of our favorite independent bottlers.
Yes.
Good guys, too. I always like running these guys. They always like to have the fun conversations to talk about woods and talk about maturation and blending and stuff. Just great guys, great conversation, absolute whiskey nerds, and sorry, people who like to spend time around.
Yes.
So we've had some of these that were absolutely incredible. This time, the number 6 batch. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so the Kelvin Cooperage releases are kind of their annual, I don't know if I would call it like it's not their flagship, it's not their best per se, but it is kind of the one that they try to show off. It's a showcase of their finishing skills. Mm-hmm. They always try to make these super good. They've been getting bigger in terms of bottle releases. I didn't look up this one, but I do expect, much like last year's, this one will be a big enough release where if you're looking for these, they're online, you can get one still. This one now, I'm going to butcher this here, but this is finished in Portuguese Madeira and Conch Republic Dark Rum casks. I have it on good authority. I didn't get it from the Forgate guys, but some people who talked to them, they were very picky and very strict about the Madeira casks they got. So they were being very difficult on that. And then my understanding is this is 9-year-old bourbon, and it is their Kentucky Heritage blend, which is probably not my favorite blend they do in terms of finishing, but I will say, or not finishing, I should say, not my favorite in terms of the taste of the bourbon. But I do think that Heritage Kentucky blend they do does very well at taking on the characteristics of the wine casks. So I'm in for a treat here, I think.
Yeah. No, I remember last time we were there, I think Bill was the one I was talking to and just had the longest conversation about trees. Like, I never talked about trees more in my life than I did with him, and I did not realize how much about wood, how this whole process is. Like, it is just incredible. It was always about trees, what trees cost, forests, things of that nature.
I'm probably going to butcher it, but I'm pretty sure from what I understand, like, Bob had a relationship with Kelvin before they started Forgate, and I think it was some conversation or something he did with them that led to like this idea of like, let's start this finished whiskey concept. And I know these guys, and I mean, now everybody's chasing after Kelvin barrels, but these guys really started the whole thing.
Yeah, I got one of my brother-in-laws is a really big fan of bourbon, and I turned him on Elijah Craig barrel strengths many years ago, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, you're right. Like, hey, what else am I not, finding?" I'm like, Forgate. Like, Kelvin Cooperage, like, that's always a good one. I give him a few other ones that we've had before, like the Mizunara wood, a few things like that. I was like, man, try some of these. He's in Indiana. He could get his hand on a few of them. And he was just like, what else can you tell me? I was like, you can subscribe to my whiskey channel for free. Like, doesn't cost you anything but a commercial, and I'll give you 2 a week. Anyway, let's get to the whiskey.
Yeah, definitely. And just a little disclaimer, every time we do a review of these guys, I get the comment, they're overpriced. And you know what, guys? Maybe they are. But you know what? When you establish a brand that puts out consistent quality, you earn the right to charge a small premium. And truth be told, as everybody else is raising prices, this is the same price as the Kelvin Cooperage one. They have not raised prices in 6 years. So.
Yeah, we do get some of those on our Forgates, even like some of our old videos. And I tell you what, money in 2024 is not what it was in, say, 2014. Like, what I could buy for 17 raspberries 15 years ago cost $300 today.
2020, I mean, it's a 25-30% difference in our value of money.
And let me tell you.
So these guys have actually been lowering their prices effectively.
Yeah, these whiskey nerds want to get whiskey in people's hands. They just want to buy the best wood, the best of everything, and do the process actually correctly.
They're paying a premium for these barrels. And again, from me as a whiskey buyer, I have a safety that I know I'm getting quality. You might find somebody who puts out a better bottle or equal bottle for less, but they're going to put out 6 bottles that suck.
Ooh.
Classic Kentucky bourbon, as noted. I always come back to this, and I swear every time I say this, I hear from somebody like there's barely any in there, but I get a very distinct Heaven Hill note.
So do I. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm told, like, I'm pretty sure that's in the blend. I can't be sure because they can't officially disclose it, but I just always get Heaven Hill. Just that almost Jim Beam nuttiness, but not Jim Beam nuttiness. Nice little bit of earthiness. Obvious corn.
Obvious corn. You're right. The nuttiness is subtle, where I can't even really describe it to you, or I couldn't really pick out what note it was. But there is a subtle nuttiness in this, but a nice char in this too.
Yeah, nice char. Definitely some sweetness. As always, Forgate, they do not overdo the finishing, and this is no exception. Although, as you can see, guys, that is a beautiful color.
Oh,
that is
rich,
beautiful,
rich mahogany.
Just beautiful.
Rich mahogany. And great ABV. There's so much fun to review.
Nice toast charred oak, but not over the top. It's not like, they've not gone too far. The age at 9 years is coming through as starting to get you a little bit of antique leathered vanilla, but not a lot.
Yeah, finally, after about 17 sniffs here, I'm getting some sweetness. Like, it's there. But you got to work for it.
Yeah, the Madeira is not coming off right away, nor is the rum. Although those dark rum casks can sometimes add like more funk than they do sweet.
Now, I am getting a little bit of the Madeira note, a little bit of that really super soft, slight vanilla oak note, like a spongy vanilla oak.
Madeira always is like a sherry note that's gone orange. If I'm not mistaken, sherry and Madeira are very similar. I think sherry's made in Spain, Madeira's Portugal maybe. And I think they age it in heated warehouses with the Madeira non-heated for sherry. Butcher me in the comments, Welsh. I know you will.
I know it's a fortified type of wine, but I don't get dark notes from that normally.
No, it gives me more like an orange marmalade kind of a thing.
Ooh. When you said orange before, I wouldn't go. When you say marmalade, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Some type of jelly or a jam.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, again, I still can pick out vanillins in this particular one.
Well, from the bourbon and the wine cask, probably both give it to you.
But there is a syrup, sort of sugary maple syrup, sort of vanilla twinge to it.
Yeah, maybe it's like some sugar cane notes coming from the rum. I'm not getting any rum funk notes, but again, dark rum, probably not the normal.
Now that you said that might be the rum note, the maple syrup. Yeah,
maple syrup. That is a good note.
Yeah. I mean, I initially am not getting what I would normally think of, because usually rum cast finished whiskeys in general are super sweet. Like, they're way over the top. It's what you want to do when you want to go next level with it. I'm not getting that, so maybe I'm misconstruing that maple syrup note with that light maple syrup vanilla sweetness note with that cask.
Well, for our Scotch fans, if you guys remember the 21-year-old from 2020, that was the super dark kind of sherry bomb.
21-year-old what?
21-year-old Springbank from 2020. That was super dark.
Yes.
That one, a lot of people believe the rum they used was dark rum as well. And that definitely gave it like a darkness and depth that really was nice versus like a funkiness. I wonder if these are kind of similar casks. Just to do a crossover between bourbon and Scotch.
There's something about this that I have hesitated saying when I tried this earlier, and so far on this whiskey review, I'm going to go ahead and say it because I believe it's here. And that's a twinge of tobacco leaf. Tobacco leaf, unsmoked tobacco. Just a twinge.
And that's common with some of the Kentucky. And again, at 9 years, you sometimes get it, sometimes don't. 9 years is a kind of a weird age for bourbon. It sometimes gives you nice age notes. Sometimes it's a little lacking. It's still a little youthful. I've had this heritage, a few different, versions of it, a few different whiskeys from them. And it, like I said, it does a great job of taking on the cask, especially on the palate. And as I think we've always talked about, bourbons, especially at cask strength, when they're finished and not over the top, they really do need time. This one has really not been open very long, guys.
No, you do have a good, threshold of once it's about 55-60% of the bottle, you just stash away and act like you don't have it. But you hit bottles usually Forgate's pretty hard.
Yeah, I usually hit my bottles initially, because what I usually do, Mike, is I've got like 10 bottles out, kind of like you have your distraction bar. I usually have like 10 bottles out.
I'm loving the room.
And then I drink them down until they're ready, so they can kind of be archived. And so that's what happens with the Forgates, and they get hit hard and then archived.
Goodness.
Because I've still got 2 and 3. I've still got my original 2, and I only bought one of those. So
that's another good Forgate. I'm going in.
Yeah, go for it. It's interesting. Like, I start getting these nice sweet notes coming in, and then like that earthy bourbon note comes in to kind of counter. It's really nice how they've balanced this whiskey. That said, I'm a little bit of a sweet super fan when it comes to bourbon. I actually would wish it was less balanced myself, but I think that's an intentional blending process that they went through here.
Oh, good, powerful, initially pure. You get that Kentucky bourbon in there. Here on the finish, twins and nuttiness on the finish. But initially, tons of just, which was like standard Kentucky bourbon. Then it gets sweet. Then on the finish, nuttiness. Super strong. You get some oak spice, vanilla, caramel. But the whole experience seems charred and well-aged. And even here on the end, I'm not saying 16 years old. I'm saying it comes off a lot older than 9-year-old whiskey that it is. Thoughts?
I get so much of that orange marmalade sweetness up front.
That too.
And it softens the bourbon. This is, again, a lot of the Forgates that have used this particular heritage blend have come off harsher to me, a little sharp.
It comes off initially sharp to me, though.
It's, well, compared to a Scotch, for sure. But for bourbons, this is actually coming off very approachable because of that initial arrival of that orange marmalade. Now, from there, yes, nice char. Again, classic with this heritage blend they use has this like punchy, charry note. Has a little bit of like a bitey kind of a corn husk note that comes through. But it's so much just sweetness, layered. It's oily, it's creamy, it's rich. And it doesn't give me any sharp notes after the initial arrival. Whereas sometimes bourbons can hit you like on the mid palate in the finish and give you a little punchy in a way that I don't like. Mm-hmm. This one's very approachable. Now, if this is the first whiskey you have of the night, it's going to give you a little Kentucky hug. I mean, it is, what did we say? It's
7, 8.
50, yeah, I mean, this has got a nice ABV. It's aggressive, for sure, but man, it's beautiful.
You mentioned earlier Scotch drinkers, which we do plenty of Scotch reviews here.
Yeah.
If you're a Scotch fan that likes more aggressive Scotches, and I don't mean to say Islay or any particular region, but this has a lot of bang to it. Mm-hmm. It's got a little bit of dirtiness to it that you kind of gravitate towards, but in the end, it kind of comes back sweet.
But it's got that, again, it's got that Madeira note, which I think, for me, the Madeira is dominant here. I think the rum's doing something. I can't tell you what.
Yeah, I agree.
The Madeira is so obvious to me here, and it's nice. And I actually generally don't gravitate towards orange flavors in my whiskey, but it works really well with the bourbon notes.
Okay, Dustin.
Excellent. When
you said orange marmalade before, I'm like, okay, I can see it. I can see it. Now, with water, I experience it. Like, it's orange jelly jam, blood orange.
Oh, blood orange is a good note.
Yeah. Type of smell. I wasn't getting a ton of the orange, but now this is like I'm drinking Highland Park 21. It's just all orange. Like orange,
This is richer and oilier, though, than Highland Park, which is weird because, again, pot still versus column still with bourbon.
57.8 versus 47.5.
Yeah, but, I mean, a lot of times, though, bourbon, because it uses those column stills, is sharper, more aggressive. Also, corn's a cheaper, lesser grain than, your malted barley. So it creates a little bit more... It's harder for it to be creamy, rich, and oily in the same way that Scotch can be.
So hollow. Hollow wheat.
This somehow kind of brings you much more closer to like a good single malt.
It's really with water. At least for me, quite telling how much it added both the corn note to it and the blood orange marmalade. Sure, whatever those notes are, those come up quite a bit more with a little bit of water.
I'll tell you, on the nose, it's so much heavy char on the nose, and yet like a lot of times like bourbons will start getting like really cloyingly sweet and vanilla'd on the finish. Really none of that here. This is a very low vanilla blended bourbons.
Yeah, I agree. There's not much that, but I said char initially with this. That was something that was pretty evident for me from the start. I think the notes that we picked up once again with water and without water have kind of flip flopped.
I'm trying to kind of like explain like the experience to like the bourbon drinker and to the Scotch drinker here because it's such a different like experience because you go in with different expectations. But the char here is real high. This is not like your 12, 14-year-old Buffalo Trace type, antique collection where you get super sweet notes on the finish. This is very like abrupt, sharp stop after that really nice heavy char note.
This is cask strength, non-sherried whiskey, Scotch drinkers bourbon.
Yeah.
If that mouthful made sense.
Yeah, there's definitely some independent bottles. This reminds you a lot of like some of the independent bottles that give you a nice like kind of aggressive punch in the middle of the palate in the nose.
Once again, an incredibly enjoyable experience from this distillery, or excuse me, from this bottler. Dustin, how much you pay for this?
$200.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Actually, I got it for $180 because I found a coupon code when I was Googling.
Smart.
Yeah.
All right.
Just in case they've got a discount thing here. I wonder if I can find it. Oh man, water didn't do anything major here. Brought down a little bit of a little spice came down. But that upfront arrival of that sweetness from the Madeira really sets this apart. It makes this a unique whiskey experience that if you haven't, there's nothing I can compare this to on that initial arrival. And that's really what sets us apart, and that's why you're paying $200 for this whiskey, is for that unique arrival. They have outdone themselves in the cask selection they did here again, and the fact that they did not, once again, over-finish the whiskey. The bourbon is here, so our bourbon-drinking friends are going to love the bourbon notes. But they're going to get a unique experience up front, especially the finish. It's good quality bourbon. I don't think there's anything exceptional in the finish here.
The finish is a compliment, not a club over the side of the head.
Yeah.
Now, going back to with water, I could pick up a few more things with water that I was missing before that you had mentioned, so they're still there. I was just having to miss them, so that's just probably my fault. Having said that, I prefer this definitely neat.
Ooh, I just picked up the rum.
Did you? What are you picking up?
Man, there's a little bit of funkiness, like after the Madeira hits, there's a little funk that comes in from the rum. It's like a sweet, dirty, like a little funky rum note. Ooh, that was good. I did not pick that up at all before.
Darn it.
It adds a little bit of a tartness to it.
I'm not getting it.
It's right after it's not on the nose, it's on the palate.
Okay, what part of
It's
that?
just after the orange note, right after it finishes. There's a little bit of like a tart funkiness coming in. It's got to be rum. Ooh, I actually really appreciate that. That just may have added a point.
I need to have more of it.
Yeah, a little bit of funk.
All right, Justin, your bottle. I go first on whiskey
Yep.
score. Like always, I've enjoyed this whiskey, like with almost all the Forgates. I love the big upfront ABV. I love the char notes. I love mostly everything that's going on with this. The sweetness is a nice compliment. I didn't get what I assumed I would get out of the rum, but perhaps this is me and my drinking palate today. This is something I've enjoyed. Like most of them, I'm at an 80 out of 100.
Yep. I am actually, I think, technical score-wise, I think you're dead on. I'm giving it an 89
It is a fun whiskey.
because I am so head over heels for that Madeira note up front. The only thing keeping this from a 90 is the finish.
And water.
No, I actually think at the water, I think it did just fine. Maybe we added different amounts, but
Well, look, with water, I could pick up more notes on the nose, but I think the palate was reduced in both scenarios. That's just me. They got completely different.
I think it did beautiful with water. I actually think you could even drink this over a rock if you're somebody who drinks that way without
not-
hurting it too much. Well, I mean, again, if you're somebody who likes a rock, I think this one won't get hurt by that, but I would never do this on rocks.
No. It'd be our last whiskey review.
We're done. But no, that Madeira note up front, I'm loving it. Again, if the finish was just a little bit more had a little more change, a little bit of something, lasted a little longer. The problem is that the finish lasts all in the front of the tongue and not on the back. If it had that, man, this could be a 90. It is, I think, the best cask finishing they've done on the Kelvin Cooperage since maybe that PX one, which was 3.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
That was really good. And I think it's the best bourbon they've put in those since maybe 2, which was 9 or 10-year-old as well.
Yeah.
Great job, guys. Killed it. $200, Mike. I have no problem with this price.
No.
I am not going to buy another one unless it shows up at one of my stores I get points for, so I get a little credit for it.
Sure.
Because it is a little pricey, but I think it's absolutely worth it to buy one. If you can afford to, guys, I think you should.
Yeah, this is another scenario where this bottle is definitely worth the price for one, absolutely. I mean, is it one where you want to collect? That's up to you.
Yeah.
How much you like these particular flavors. Some with Dustin, the things we collect are different even,
absolutely.
amongst us. Me and Dustin have our own preferences. This could definitely be your preference. Anyway, those are our thoughts on the whiskey. One thing I will add was when I gave it an 88, I was the lower of my 2 scores.
Okay.
Just to throw that caveat out there, because I usually like to hedge my bets as much as humanly possible. But those are our thoughts on this particular Kelvin Cooperage number 6. If you guys had a chance to try this one, we'd love to know what you guys think. Dustin, as always, Forgate's an underrated brand.
Yeah.
And we wish the folks.
Happy finish drinking.
We'll see you then.